Time for another Coffee with Kilroy, or what I like to call beverage in a book. My beverage, coffee, you guessed it. And I hope each one of you is enjoying something that brings you pleasure or you like to drink, gets you up in the morning or keeps you going through the day, or relaxes you in the evening. I don't know when you're watching this, but whenever you are watching it, thank you. As for the book, today is Torpedo Raiders, Solitaire World War II Air Combat Advanced Edition, a Battlegame book from Gary Graber of Minden Games, which includes 5 historical scenarios. And we've looked at a Battlegame book before from Minden. That was Masada, which is a Battlegame book and dealt with ancient warfare, Romans versus the Hebrews. And what this one deals with is World War II torpedo raiders. There's a focus on different torpedo raids and the planes that carried them out in World War II. And like other Minden books, it's not as self-contained as what we're used to of the current iteration of wargame books. Whether you have Worthington or the ones from Mike Lambo or Jamie Kirkpatrick or others, those books are what I kind of call self-contained. You're writing in them or you're marking in them or you're coming up with an alternative to writing or marking in them, but you have everything within the book other than a pencil, a pen, or a die. These games, you actually have to, make some components or pull some stuff out of the book to play the game. It's not all self-contained within the book. And as an example of that here is, if you look, here are the counters. Here's the color counters. There's another black and white counters in here. But here's the counters you're going to use for the game, and here's the color one. So you could copy this and then mount this, or you could cut that off because it's a little bit thicker stock. I would never do that, but you can do what you want with it because it's your book. But there are black and white counters as well, and this is really the main components you need. Plus there's some log sheets, which you can mark in the book for that, but if you want to have reusable ones, you're going to want to make copies. And there is a couple of pages of charts or tables that you might want to copy and keep those off to the side because there's not a ton of rules to this, but you do need to go through those charts and tables to reference what you need to do or the results. And so it might be better to have those over to the side instead of, flipping through the book to get to them. So there is a little bit of maintenance or do-it-yourself to play these games, but not a whole lot. And these predate the current iteration of wargame books by a few years. And so that is the notion that that these kind of follow. These I kind of put these akin to the Sandhurst Book of Games, which came out like in the 80s, I believe, or I think it was in the 80s. And it was a book, but it had games nestled in it, and actually had components that kind of fell out or pulled out. This one you actually kind of have to make your own. So let's see what you get in a book here. In the Torpedo Raiders book here, here's your table of contents. There's some notes about how to use it. There's some history on torpedo bombers in World War II. There's also a further history later in the book talking about here torpedo bomber description. So you've got a little bit of history here, and plus you have some specific specifications and dimensions and history of individual torpedo bombers later in the book. The game instructions are not very long. There's standard game options. Then you have the scenarios, and there's actually advanced historical scenarios. So you can play the regular scenario, and then there's an advanced option. So you arguably you have 10 scenarios in this book. Plus there are some optional rules, so you can add or subtract to some of those scenarios. So there is quite a bit of replayability here in that regards. Here's how to use this book. You'll need a deck of 52 cards. That's going to be the engine of randomization on certain things. So you're going to need a deck of just a standard deck of 52 playing cards. Who doesn't have that? But again, it's something that's outside this book. You have the 5 historical scenarios. Here's the history of torpedo bombers in World War II. So there's a little brief history here talking about dive bombers and torpedoes and land-based bombers, carrier-based. So a little bit of background there before you get into the meat of the game. Here's the game instructions, talking about how you play the game. There's this, the standard game. Here's setup. I mean, as I said, there's not a lot there, right? I mean, that's kind of your introduction to the game instructions, but then here's the setup. Here's play. I'm referencing some of the charts and tables that you're going to need, and then they're reprinted or they're in another page, 2 pages front to back later in the book that you, as I said before, you might want to copy those and have those as a reference. Talking about your fire combat tables and critical hit and some of the results there, your torpedo hit table, your ship damage table, ship critical hit tables, and how those were resolved. Then you get your standard game options. You get your game variants. As I said, there's quite a few, there's like a menu here of items that you can add on to this. And then you get into your historical scenarios. There's Taranto, I pronounced that, I butchered that wrong, but that's a British raid on Italian ships. Bismarck, we all know that one. Pearl Harbor, we're probably familiar with that one. Force Z, which was a Japanese attack in the Pacific. Midway, know that one as well. And those are your historical scenarios. It tells you, the game deck, like this is 48 cards, the alert level, the approach, scenario length, targets, special rules, enemy fighters, victory conditions. So there's a historical summary. Gives you a little bit of setup for the whole scenario there. Then you have advanced optional rules that deal with stuff like torpedo drop too short, airplane malfunctions, cloud cover, heavy ship flak, all kinds of different advanced optional rules. Then you have advanced historical scenarios. So you have the same 5 historical scenarios, but with a little bit of a tweaking and making them a little bit harder, or maybe making them a little bit more historical. Who knows? This is a very simple game. Don't know how much of a simulation exercise this is. Need more coffee. That's a prompt right there. But you're going to have this for each one of the historical scenarios that you can play standard or you can play advanced. Then you have your introductory game. It's a simplified version of the standard game. So you have an introductory game, a standard game, and an advanced game, and a ton of optional rules. What more can you ask for, right? This is kind of like your do-it-your-own-self kit. Well, design your own scenarios. There we go. I spoke too soon. Then you have your designer notes here. Page of those talking about how Mr. Graber came up with this. Then this is that game tables page I mentioned. It's front and back, so you might want to copy that and have that off the side. Here are the game counters that you can copy out of the book if you like black and white, or if you want color, you've got them on the back there. This is basically the playing counters. Then you have some administrative counters there as well, it looks like. Then you have the description of the torpedo bombers. They're like their stats and some historical background on each one of those that probably follow the counters that are provided in the game. Then you get game logs, and there is a page here talking about how to use notation and how you want to keep track of stuff on your game log. And then there's like the columns go from 1 to 16 on there, so you probably want to make a copy of that so you have the game log off to the side. There's an extended example of play here. Experimental rules, like if you don't have enough rules, you don't have optional, you don't have advanced, you got to have experimental too. I mean, plenty of rules here. Then you have talking about one of their Battle Over Britain series and this Theater of the Mind. Theater of the Mind is like, this is a solitaire game, so you're kind of wanting to put yourself in the mood and the situation and be in the pilot seat of how some of these things happened. Then this is talking a little advert for their other games they have. There's Masada, which we've talked about. One thing I've seen about Minden Games, I have a handful, very few, and I'm going to be getting more. There's some other their series I'm starting to look at. Part of developing this series, these war game books, these little war game books, but also just out of interest on how they play. I have a World War I Somme game that I think has been reprinted in one of these little books now, but I have it as I got it, I think, as a little Ziploc. They don't really have a lot of, I don't think they have any boxed games. I think it's all either Ziploc or these books. And they do, I think, quite a bit of print and play or PDFs off of like Wargame Vault or places like that. And I'm fine with that. I've done a few games in PDF. I've done a lot of print and play games. A large portion of my collection are print and play games. But I like the published book. I just like this better. I like the tactile feel. I'm kind of a book person. I'm kind of a board game and book person. I like having the tactile feel. I don't play a lot of stuff online or play a lot of print and play. I own a lot of print and play and have played them in the past, but I do prefer a published outcome or a published book or board game in that regard. So I'd have the Somme game, which I think is Ziploc, and then I've of course had the Masada book, and I've got some others I might share with you guys. But one thing I've noticed in just looking at their catalog, they do a lot of naval. They have several naval series. I think they have at least 3 different series of naval games or collection of naval games. And they have several air games. And here's Battle over Britain. Here's Battle over Dunkirk. I don't know if they use the same system. Battle of Dogger Bank. I imagine that's one of their naval designs. Battleship Captain. Naval Warfare. This is like... So like 1862 to 1918, so you're going from American Civil War up to through World War I. So they do a lot of naval and air, but they also have, of course, other World War II and other war games as well. Of course, you have Masada, which is Ancients, but I don't know. There's a really heavy on the naval, I see, and with second probably air comes in, and then World War II stuff. They also have this. I don't see it here, but there's Panzer Digest. I think they have a thing called Panzer Schreck, which don't have any of those, but I might pick one up. Look kind of like magazines, or maybe they're little book-type magazines. And some of these look like they come with either 2 or 3 games in them. So it might be a way that they introduce the market or the hobby world to their games is through this Panzer Schreck or Panzer Digest. I need to pull one of those up or find one of those and see how they play out. But I imagine it's probably, it might just be a game like this that's within that publication. But looking at the list, it looks like some of them have 2 or even 3, and that'd be kind of interesting. That's worth your money, right? If you can get one of those for, I don't know, $20-25 and you get 3 games, who's gonna shake a stick at that? So might look more into that stuff. But there you have it, place for your notes, your color counters, and that's the book. That's Torpedo Raiders, Solitaire World War II Air Combat. Love to know if anybody's played this, if anybody's tried this, whether they love it, hate it. Love to hear whatever their thoughts are on this or on any of the Minden games. Love to hear what people think about them. Do they... I get the sense that they're it's kind of a no nonsense, low overhead type operation. They're just trying to get you some the basic essence of the situation that they're trying to simulate and put it in a clear and concise game fashion that you can get to the table and start playing. And that seems to be what they're going for. It's not super elaborate. It's not super complex. It's not meant to, be anywhere close to like a monster type game. This not going to outstay its welcome. It's there to get a feel, to get a taste, to enjoy it, play it, and then put it away and live another day. So that's my sense. I'd love to hear what anybody else thinks about this game company or what their designs are or how they play. This one or any of the other ones, Any suggestions on what I might look into? I'm looking at salvo. I've got another one already here that I might, I'll show it to you guys later. I'll do another coffee with Kilroy later. I don't know about this week. I've got a lot of stuff going on, but at some point I'll do that one. But if there's any others in this series that you think you want to see or heard about or recommend, love to hear it. Love to get into it and talk with you all about it. So, hey, thank you for spending some time with me. I know it's precious, and so any time you spent is greatly appreciated. So thank you so much. Enjoy your coffee or beverage or whatever you're drinking, and enjoy the rest of your day. Thanks all. Thanks for watching.